our young voters are being sold a big lie. That data doesn't stay on your phone, it gets packaged, sold. It's a hidden tax on every single American family. That is capitalism. Capitalism doing exactly what it was designed to do. People, left mostly alone by government, will create better outcomes than central planners ever could. That bet worked. It's why generations have risked everything to come here. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani used the semi-quincentennial milestone to push the usual script. Capitalism is the enemy. The wealthy hoard too much. America is systemically racist, whatever that means, and only bigger government can fix all that. This from a guy who's been a U.S. citizen for less than 8 years and mayor of New York City for a mere 6 months. The same philosophy that treats every challenge as an excuse for more spending, more regulation, more redistribution, and more bureaucracy, by the way. This isn't compassion, it's control. Socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it, your preference. They're essentially the same economy/political philosophy delivered in slightly different mechanisms. Force versus coerced agreement. Well, they rely on control. Big government strips control from we the people to they themselves. Eventually total control, by the way. That's their end goal. The real fight isn't left versus right, but freedom versus government. We don't reject helping people. We reject the idea that help only counts when it's funneled through political means and their cronies. So-called democratic socialism, a deadly cancer to the healthy American experiment, is spreading like a California wildfire. Our young voters are being sold a big lie, that communism and socialism are more fair and equitable to the people they govern. Nothing could be further from the truth, unless, of course, you consider famine and disease mortality equitable. Because truth be told, communism and socialism have starved and bullied more mortality of the people they oversee than any pandemic ever could or has. Wealth isn't created in Washington or city halls. It's created by risk takers. The entrepreneur mortgaging her house, investing in the stock market for a better return. The immigrant arriving with nothing but drive. The family opening that restaurant. The mechanic launching his own garage. The engineer turning an idea into reality. That's the American engine. And it's exactly what the control freaks want to throttle back through government. Control. Millions have clawed their way to America's shores. Almost none have spent generations trying to leave. Not because we're flawless, because we're not, but because we offer something rare. The freedom to build a life that's truly yours. Equality of opportunity, not engineered outcomes by bureaucrats. We can and must do better. That's the American story. Constant improvement through debate, innovation, and voluntary cooperation. Voluntary cooperation, not top-down mandates. The grievance crowd dresses up their complaints as virtue. We see them for what they really are. Excuses to expand the state at the expense of liberty. And that data doesn't stay on your phone. It gets packaged, sold, and bought by the government without a warrant, without a judge, and without you ever saying yes. This isn't some dystopian movie. It's happening right now in 2026 in the United States of America. Agencies are purchasing commercial location data by the billions of signals. The IRS, ICE, Border Patrol, the FBI, even the CDC has done it. They're not kicking down your door. They're not wiretapping your phone the old-fashioned way. They're just writing a check to data brokers who treat your entire life like a product on a shelf. And once they own that map of your movements, they can access it whenever they want. And here's the part that should make your blood boil. The Fourth Amendment to the Constitution was written for exactly this kind of thing. The founders lived under general warrants. British soldiers could walk into your home, rifle through your stuff, your papers, dig through your private life with almost no restriction. So the founders put it in the Constitution in plain English. You need probable cause. You need a warrant. You need a neutral judge. They never imagined that 250 years later, the government would simply outsource the spying to private companies and call it commercially available information. We've watched Section 702 of FISA turn into a backdoor search engine on American citizens. We've watched it expire gets short-term extended, expire again. The collection doesn't ever actually stop. Court certifications keep the machine running into next year. Meanwhile, the data broker loophole stays wide open. No warrant required if you just pull out the government credit card. And it's not limited to location data. It's the same mindset that puts cameras and microphones inside your car and calls it safety features. Fans, we buy the tickets, the jerseys, the streaming packages, and show up game after game with hope in our hearts, but skepticism in our minds. When fans in a lot of cities already know on opening day who's built to win and who's just filling out the schedule, the system is broken. And we're watching it play out in real time in 2026. The big market teams are spending like there's no tomorrow, while smart, disciplined clubs in smaller markets are proving you don't necessarily need a blank check to compete. Look at the payroll numbers right now. Los Angeles Dodgers pushing nearly $400 million. The Mets around $370 million. Yankees over $300 million. Those are massive numbers. Now look at the other side. The Rays, $102 million. The Guardians around $80 to $90 million, and the Brewers and the Marlins even lower in some cases. And get this, Pittsburgh. I was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. I played in the organization. A classic small market club is right there fighting with limited resources too. Yet here we are. Teams with the lowest payrolls have to play lights out ball just to stay in the hunt. And by the way, pray that there are no other major injuries on their season is over. These teams are winning with drafting, player development, and smart roster building, not just opening up the checkbook. Meanwhile, big market teams with huge payrolls can buy their way into the postseason or buy a top caliber replacement to an injured star, something small market teams simply cannot afford to do. Energy isn't optional, it's foundational. Petrochemicals from oil make fertilizers that feed billions of people around the world. Plastics in everything from your iPhone to your toilet paper. That's right, there are petroleum-based ingredients in your toilet paper. They're in our medical supplies, even in the roads we drive on. Transportation, this is huge. 70% of U.S. freight moves by truck or train. Both are primarily fueled by diesel. Aviation, shipping, manufacturing, all of it runs on a petroleum product. So when prices surge for gas, oil, diesel, and jet fuel, it's a hidden tax on every single American family and every business just trying to get ahead. Well, here's where America's edge is really, really located. It resides right here. We're already the world's top oil producer, roughly 13 to 14 million barrels per day. That's more than Saudi Arabia at 9.5 million barrels a day, or Russia at around 9 million barrels per day. We achieved this through American innovation and grit, even with one hand tied behind our back by regulations and restrictions and tree-hugging liberal activists. But with smarter energy policies, faster permitting on federal lands, responsible access to offshore areas, and getting the green lobby the hell out of the way, we could realistically add another 4, 5, I don't know, maybe even more million barrels per day. Look at the Alaska North Slope. It used to produce far more oil than it does today. Offshore oil reserves sit largely untapped. Vast federal lands could be opened responsibly, streamlined, permitting instead of endless delays. If America finally embraced the true all of the above energy strategy, oil, gas, nuclear, renewables, where they make sense, we wouldn't just be independent. We'd become the global swing producer, the one country who can adjust output and help set the tone and the price for world oil prices globally, just like Saudi Arabia did in the 1970s and for decades going forward. We get $100, got it. Maybe a nice dinner, decent bottle of wine. $1,000, solid car payment. $1 million, most guys can picture the nice house, the watch, the lifestyle that $1 million would bring you. But $1 trillion, Now, that might as well be some sort of sci-fi fantasy. So let's drag it down to earth for a minute. Right now, this country's debt has smashed through $39 trillion. If you split that tab among American households, every single American household, every one of you is on the hook for nearly $300,000. Can you imagine what you would do with 300 grand that you spent for yourself? But that 300 grand I'm talking about, that's not your mortgage. That's not your Lambo payment. Not the credit card you actually use. That's Washington's screw up handed straight to your family. Every man, woman, and child in America, how about $115,000 each person? That newborn grandkid of yours just got gifted $115,000 in debt by the government before they even open their eyes. The kid flipping burgers at the local burger joint, same number. The retiree scraping by in Social Security, same number, 115K. They haven't made one single financial decision for themselves yet, and they're already under the water to the tune of 115 grand. But here's the part that should really piss you off. This debt isn't some static number sitting in a pile in a dusty ledger. It's a raging beast that's growing fast. The federal debt is exploding by $85,000 every single second. Every single second, 85 grand more tacked onto that debt. Watch this. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, boom, $250,000 just got tacked on while you blinked. By the time I finish this monologue, Washington will have added millions more to the pile. And the clowns in D.C. are out there acting like it's no big deal, smiling for the cameras, passing trillion-dollar infrastructure bills that somehow include green energy slush funds and gender studies in Pakistan. Give us a break. Let me hit you with my favorite mind bender to really expose how insane this number is. 1 million seconds ago, that was 11 days ago. A billion seconds ago, roughly 32 years ago. You take back to the early 1990s, flip phones, grunge music, Bill and Hillary Clinton in the White House, Monica Lewinsky crawling around on all fours. But a trillion seconds ago, a trillion, just one, that's 31,700 years ago. 31,700 years ago. A trillion seconds ago, humans hadn't invented writing yet. The pyramids, not even a sketch on a cave wall. The Roman Empire, total fantasy. Now, multiply that by 39. America's debt clock right now is the equivalent of 1.2 million years if you counted 1 second at a time. When the clock started ticking, woolly mammoths were still roaming the earth. That's not a debt, that's a geological time frame. And don't kid yourself, the interest payments alone on our debt are now one of the largest single line items in the entire federal budget. Listen to this. We are now spending over $1 trillion per year on interest to the debt. We're literally borrowing money to pay interest on money we've already borrowed and spent. That's not fiscal policy. That's a junkie with 6 maxed out credit cards taking out a 7th card just to cover the minimum payment on the first 6. But the difference, and there is a difference, that junkie eventually gets his cards cut off and hits rock bottom and maybe figures out a way to turn his life around and get back on his feet and get up. American hasn't been cut off. Not yet, at least. But the credit card companies, in this case, are foreign governments and the Fed, and they're starting to look at us funny. And that means higher interest rates. I've lived this discipline lesson my own life. Back in my trading days on the floor in New York, you get sloppy for a while. Take stupid positions. Ignore risk management. I don't know, chase the hot trade. For a while, it feels fine, actually feels good. Then one bad move wipes out all your profit, maybe for the year or more. Same with baseball. Skip a leg day, party too much, lose your edge. Suddenly, you're riding the bench. I'm Eric Bolling. This is The Edge. Please subscribe right here and join our group of motivated individuals looking for a better life. You can also find me on all social media platforms, all of them, at Eric Bolling, ERICBOLLING. We have a twice-weekly newsletter aimed towards the libertarian leaders of the world, and I do a daily political show on Real America's Voice. It appears on Roku, Prime Video, Dish Satellite, YouTube, Rumble, and several iHeartRadio networks via voice only. Bolling, The Edge. See you next week.